In a virtual event from the DNC, President Biden touted the bipartisan infrastructure bill. He also said we will pass the Build Back Better plan very soon.
After years of infrastructure week, followed by another, we just passed a monumental piece of legislation. It's going to create millions of jobs, and that's not just Joe Biden saying it. That's everyone from Wall Street to labor saying it. Creating millions of jobs to grow our economy, make us more competitive, and take a giant step, I mean this sincerely, a giant step toward dealing with the climate crisis. It's the most significant investment in passenger rail in the past 50 years, roads and bridges in the past 70 years, public transit ever, and we're going to modernize our ports, our airports, our freight rail, make it easier for companies to get their goods to market and reduce the supply chain bottlenecks, backlogs that are out there, and lower the cost for working families. We'll replace lead pipes in every American so that every American can drink clean water and not have to worry. Every American will have access to high-speed internet, and we'll see new fleets of electric vehicles, school buses, and a national network of charging stations, over 500,000 of them all across America. So we can charge up and drive across the country without ever having to do anything other than know you can get to the next charging station and make it all the way without worry at all. We're going to also take away those diesel buses, which are where our children inhale diesel exhaust, making it safe and battery-operated buses. For making sure bridges you drive over are safe, making sure the water you drink is clean, to making sure that our power lines and our levees are strong enough to withstand the next hurricane, the next flood, the wildfire, superstorm. This legislation is going to change the lives of every American. And for 4 years long, the last president told us we're going to get the infrastructure done, but he couldn't get it done. So it was left to us, and we got the job done. By the way, we got some help from some Republicans who had the courage to vote for it initially and vote for it in the House. And now we need to do it again with my Build Back Better plan. And I'm confident we're going to get it done as we did in the past, everything else we've tried so far. And we're going to need your help. Your help when you're talking about it makes a difference. And for those families struggling to afford child care and elder care, our Build Back Better plan will be life-changing. For those 2 million women who can't get back into the workforce right now because of things like child care, this will get them back to work. And that's going to be good for them, good for the families, and good for the economy. But there's more. But that means over the course of my presidency, with your help, we've created over 5 million new jobs just since we got sworn in on January the 20th. That's the biggest, largest number of jobs any president has ever created up to this point in their presidency. Now, I know a lot of folks don't feel the progress we're making in the economy. I get it. I know the cost of gas, groceries, and rent seems to be harder and harder to handle. That's one of the more reasons why we had to pass my Build Back Better bill. But if you hold for a second here, you know, when we passed the first piece of legislation we passed, one of the reasons we did it, we knew people were in real trouble. So many people lost their jobs. So that's why you learned that we got everybody another $1,400 to get them through. At the time, they got a check for $1,400. It also made it easier for people to be able to, if you had a child, and we passed the child tax credit. It means if you had one child, you got a check for $300 a month. If you had two, anyway, it goes on. So it really helped, but we had to do more. You know, the Build Back Better plan is not going to cause inflation like people are talking about, because 17 Nobel laureates in economics have looked at my plans and said they will ease inflationary pressure. So for those Americans who focus on the cost of living, it's even more important to pass this legislation. Folks, I ran for president because for too long, the working people of this nation have been dealt out of the deal. And it was time to deal them back in.
Deputy Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said economists predict infrastructure bill will ease inflation in the long run.
After Congress has passed the infrastructure bill, how much can the American people expect that inflation will be reduced as a result of that over the next 12 months?
Yeah, I don't have a specific number for you. I'm happy to talk to our economics team and get something more granular there. But as we've heard from experts, whether it is an economist expert or the 17 Nobel laureate economists have said that this bill, the Build Back Better Act and bipartisan infrastructure, will ease inflation. So that's really important. That's something that we, when we talk to, when we hear members are afraid of going big, we say, well, this is going to actually help us in the long run, especially as we see with prices going up, we see the inflation continuing to be out there. And so that is really an important message that we have. I don't have, like I said, a granular number for you, but we know this from economists who have said that these two bills will help do that.
At a press briefing today, Governor Ron DeSantis slammed the allocation of money in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. He said disproportionate amount of money is going to New York.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to have to see. I mean, one of the things, obviously I'm not in Congress. I was not apprised of everything in legislation. One of the things I am concerned about, which I think people should look at, is it seems like there's like a disproportionate amount of money is going to like New York and New Jersey, and that Florida is not getting a really significant share out of over, $1 trillion. I mean, they're saying we're going to get, what, $20 billion? Like, that's not a lot compared to how big, the state is. And so I'd like to know more about that. Is Florida being treated well in this, or are they basically funneling money to a bunch of very, very high tax and dysfunctional states? Because if you look at what they did with the COVID money from this year, Florida got penalized. We got penalized because our economy was actually doing much better than the lockdown states. So we got less money than our population. And look, we'll make do with whatever, but if you're going to do money, then it should be done fairly. And we got less than our population. Other states that had more lockdown and high unemployment, they got more money than their share of the population. And then to top it off, what they did was they said, okay, if your unemployment is within 2% pre-COVID, you only get half the money now, and we're going to send you the other half next year. So we used some of the money, but we don't even have access to the rest of it. So I hope people will look at that and provide some analysis on how does Florida make out compared to these other states? Because I think if you're somebody that's elected to represent Florida, the last thing I think Floridians want is to funnel their tax dollars to New York and California. They're actually talking about doing massive tax cuts for wealthy people in New York and California by doing this SALT deduction, which basically benefits high income tax states. I can't believe they would actually do that, but I think they're trying to do it. Doing what's best for the country means treating folks fairly. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see what exactly is in store. And I'd also like to know what's the bureaucratic process for some of this stuff, because some of this stuff gets ground down in the bureaucracy. I think what we've tried to do in Florida with our work program is move as efficiently as possible. When we had disruptions in COVID, we made up for it and actually gained some ground on some of the projects. And then, of course, my Job Growth Grant Fund is very good because it's very nimble, and I can go, and if there's big projects that are being done, I can put a few million and get us over the hump. And I think we're going to continue looking to do that to really make an impact. And we